whether it is influenza or something else, but the certainty is that there will be a pandemic. Where will it come from? If we look back at SARS, there are many sources of pandemics. The pandemic of SARS, or the SARS incident, came from the bat, the small bat that lives in caves in southern China. Since the discovery of the coronavirus in the bat, a whole family of viruses have been isolated from the bat. How many of these have potential to transmit and spread in humans? We don't know. When we think of the bat, currently there is a panic in Australia in the horse industry, and racing is very important in Australia. The Hendra virus is killing horses. This again comes from the bat. New South Wales authorized 12 million to study Hendra virus. It has the capacity to transmit to humans. And so preparing for pandemics really begins back at the animal stage and preventing that bat getting to the horse and keeping the horse from the trainer. That's where we really have to start to take care of pandemics. Going back to the current situation of influenza pandemics, despite what Arnold said, the concept in the world is that the H1N1 or swine flu H1N1 pandemic was overall mild. In fact, the headlines in Australia were the pandemic that wasn't. And so currently, with the idea that the pandemic that wasn't and the SARS pandemic outbreak that didn't become severe, there's a sense of complacency. And with the shortage, with the current financial situation in the world, I am concerned that there will be a turn away from preparing for pandemics, and that is something we simply can't afford. I come back to H5N1. H5N1 bird flu is still out there and killing 50% of the people. In the laboratory, we have the capacity to convert that virus into a killer. Nature will eventually convert that virus it is a killer now in poultry, will eventually transfer that virus into humans. The potential is there. Whether it happens or not, we don't know. We simply cannot predict. But with the capacity to kill 50% of people, we had better stay prepared. We have got to continue looking at our pandemic plans. Dust off those plans. As Tom said, don't put those plans away. They have to be put in place. We have to put in place the antiviral drugs. We have to prepare the vaccines. This morning I turned on BBC News and they talked about the universal influenza vaccine. That is very interesting how quickly it's been picked up. There is a potential now for a universal vaccine based on a common determinant on the hemagglutinin. It would be very encouraging if that is available. One of the things that happened with the H1N1 pandemic was that the advisory panels who advised WHO and the commercial companies ran into conflict in Europe. There was criticism since the advisors advised the government to stockpile huge amounts of antivirals, prepare vaccines, that the advisors were being paid off by industry and giving misinformation. This raises a very important question for the future, for advisory panels and where to go forward for advice to the top levels of government and the top levels of WHO, FAO, OIE. And my suggestion is that these suggestions have to come from the bottom up. All of the countries that have the capabilities must put forward their experts to the advisory boards, because the underdeveloped countries of the world will look to the top for advice. And the advice has got to be trusted. And there is a sense at the moment that there is some question. The review panel, the so-called Finberg report that Dr. Monto referred to, is a very, very important document. It looked at the advisory panels, criticized WHO for some of its activities and lack of transparency, and advised it on the future, and is the document that our group is going to incorporate. Turning to early warning, surveillance, sharing, that is where we have to stop a pandemic if we possibly can. And one of the things that we missed out on in the recent pandemic was pre-approval. Tom mentioned pre-approval to work in different countries. We also have to move the pre-approval down to our own level, and we have pre-approval to do experiments in animals, pre-approval in school closing, and so on. We have to get pre-approval and have protocols in place. And these many opportunities were missed, and it's something that we must put into place and practice. So I will close by looking back at bird flu. I was very closely involved in bird flu in Hong Kong in the early days. And it was quite clear that, to me, the one sensible thing to do was to close all of those poultry markets. How many poultry markets have been closed? In Hong Kong, every poultry market has been closed. In China, lip service has been given to the idea of closing poultry markets. In the United States, the number of poultry markets has actually increased. So we give lip service to these ideas, but we really don't look at the consequences. And until people are dead, the number of deaths increased, we don't get attention. And unfortunately, this is what it takes. If H1N1 had been anything like 1918, we would probably have all been criticized for not predicting its severity. Since it wasn't severe, we're criticized because it was not so severe. But let's put the plans in place in case H5N1, and let's put into place representation from the experts in the countries back to the top levels rather than the other way. Thank you.